creating curiosity by asking better questions. This is Shed Talk. Shed Talk, the things you know that you don't know. Nadine Moxon, 50 over 50 in shape and inspired. Nadine Moxon? Oh my God, thank you very much for joining me on Shed Talk. This is an honor to have you on board today.
Thank you so much.
Well, I have to ask you, the Fit Aussie Mama.
Yes.
How did you come up with that name?
It was actually, I was working at Good Life on 130th and Instagram had kind of just come out and I was told that, I should be on there. And I sat down with one of the other trainers and that's what we came up with.
A Fit Aussie Mama. How
I'm
long
fit,
ago?
I'm Australian, I'm a mum.
That is true. And now, how long have you been doing this for? In the personal training, the fitness,
personal
and
training
Aussie?
and fitness would be just over 2 decades. So, yeah.
2 decades. So let's
Yeah.
go. So that would mean you are, I'm not going to say your age because I know your birthday is coming up
I know.
here.
You can say it though.
Okay, turning 50.
Yes.
Now, the most wonderful thing about turning 50 in the fitness industry and longevity, when you're looking at young people that are actually looking for a career, when you look at fitness, people don't think an outstanding fitness instructor, 50 years old, making an absolutely killer career out of it.
Yeah, it's cool. Doing what I love every day.
So tell me a little bit about the journey.
The journey. So it started for me probably early 30s with the fitness side of it. I spent my 20s, I was in a very toxic marriage. Spent my 20s drowning my sorrows in alcohol and partying all the time. And then when that marriage ended, I found fitness pretty much. So that kind of pulled me through an extremely difficult time in my life where I was really lost. I didn't know who I was anymore and just found myself through that. And then through that journey, I joined like a local gym and had a handful of people come up to me and say, you should do a show. So I eventually did. My first response to doing a show was I'm not getting up in a bikini standing in front of all those people on stage. And then fast forward, I think it was 12 months and there she was standing on stage in a bikini. So, and that's essentially what started my career.
So you just said show. Mm-hmm. What kind of show?
It was called the INBF down in Australia. So it was a natural bodybuilding show and I did figure and I did all right.
How did you place?
Top 5.
Top 5.
And got myself an Australian sponsor. So way back then that was a really big deal and was featured on their website as a transformation. So I actually went from 220 pounds down to my stage weight.
And what was your stage weight?
I was about 130-ish. So here's the difference between Australia and North America with the fitness side of things. Everybody over here is so obsessed with their weight. But when you're standing on stage, it's the aesthetic look and how lean you are, not how much you weigh. So I know I weighed myself a couple of weeks out from the show, but the day of the show, I didn't weigh myself because it's irrelevant.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what I found in the fitness industry and a lot of women and men as well, getting into their 50s, what has been the greatest challenge? Or I guess it's not even a challenge because you're training, you're 50 years old. And what is that like for training other women that are, I'm assuming, that are older within their 50s as well?
Yeah. It depends on what they're after. So you can definitely get to where you want to go. It's totally achievable 3 days a week, providing you dial in your nutrition, supplementation, and, you're doing the workouts. I'm favourable with my training, again, like towards strength training rather than the HIIT training and cardiovascular. So that's where I program my clients to go. It's, in my opinion, more important to have a very good foundation of skeletal muscle mass. As we age, it keeps everything intact, slows the aging process down for us for a certain extent, protects against injuries. Our metabolism is at a higher rate, so we're just, we run a lot better. And we look great when we've got more muscle mass.
Oh, no, definitely for sure.
Yeah.
So with young athletes and young trainers and older athletes and older trainers, do you see a difference in culture between the two training styles from being the older trainers versus the younger trainers? Because when you're in the gym and you see fit Aussie mama training her group of people, then or a person, and then over in the corner you'll see somebody 18 and trainer, whatever you would call them. Do you actually see the difference in the clientele?
I do, and I see the difference in the training styles. And I think because I'm a little older and I've had a little bit more experience and educationally my background is different, there are things that make you go,
Well,
with some of the things that they do. You see the going
that
on.
lean in moment, that aha. So what would
Yeah.
that aha moment when you're watching go? Because I know when you're in the gym and you see somebody, you don't want to go correct them.
No.
So what does that look like to you when you see that, or what do you see?
I see so many different things. You know, we're in a day and age now where we have social media out there and we have young influencers out there doing crazy exercises and movements that are not really that good for somebody that may be a little bit older or who has injuries or imbalances. Probably one of the things that I see a lot is people getting their clients to do like squats on an uneven surface on a Bosu ball. And for the life of me, I don't understand why. And I saw it actually, it was probably 3 or 4 months ago. I walked into the gym and I saw one of the trainers, and this gentleman would have been 70 years old trying to squat on a Bosu ball whilst doing an overhead shoulder press with dumbbells. And he was so uneven, and I just, like, I had to look in the other direction because for me, that's a train wreck. If he is so unstable with that and has like a slight injury or something, if he falls off, at that age, there's not a lot coming back from that.
I can almost visualize that, seeing all of a sudden that snap, crackle, pop, and then
Yeah.
there goes your hips at 70.
Totally. Or
Yeah.
your knee, and then that's not good.
So being a trainer for all these years, and you just had mentioned about social media,
Yeah.
the difference between then and now, influencers, and you really see it. How do you see it hindering or benefiting a personal trainer and or your customers or clients?
I think if we're selective with who we're watching and we're looking up to people who have a good background in training, who are qualified, I think it's a great tool. You know, I go on social media all the time and I reference people that are like well-known trainers around the world, and I think it's a great resource that we can have. But it depends who you follow. You can't, in my opinion, if you're following and taking advice from somebody who's 22 years old and done one show, now they're an expert. I just think their advice is a little questionable versus somebody that's been in the industry and has an education behind them.
And when you mean by an education, elaborate a little bit more about that.
Qualifications. So coming from Australia, everything down there is very heavily regulated. So you can't even work behind the front desk in Australia without having a qualification. So you need to know all the equipment. If you're selling supplements, you need to know all the supplements, what they do. You need to be able to show somebody how to use the equipment. Whereas in North America, especially in the online space, it's unregulated. So you don't know if you're seeking advice from somebody who knows what they're talking about or not.
And on the supplement side, is there a better way for supplements? So when you get into the older generation, I'm going to talk about fitness over 50.
Yeah.
So you get into men and women that are turning into their 50s, and I'm 55, and I'm a sole believer in fitness, and I truly believe it is getting people motivated after 50 to come in to do that. How do you do that to get people into fitness over 50?
So I think it comes from within motivation. So I can provide you with the tools and everything you need to get to your goals, but the motivation has to be here. So your why has to be strong enough for you to do it. I find that, you know, if your why is not strong enough, then if something goes a little sideways, I call it your day getting hijacked. So if your day gets hijacked, and mine does all the time because I have kids and I'm juggling a couple of businesses and an entrepreneur, and sometimes your day doesn't go according to plan. And I think a lot of people, if their why isn't strong enough, then they'll fall off the wagon with that. And there seems to be this all or nothing mentality with that stuff. So they fall off, they're gone for a bit, and then they feel sorry for themselves and come back and, you know, get back on again and try again with that. So I really try and give my clients a balanced approach, something that they can adhere to and something that's sustainable for them long term, because the all or nothing approach doesn't work. I've done it. It doesn't work at all. So I take into consideration their lifestyle, whether they're a single mum or not. Have they got kids? Are kids in sports? Does their husband work away? Like, I take into consideration all these things and really try and design something that is going to work for them and their lifestyle that they can take moving forward.
Would you call their nutrition like you're going to go on a diet, or this is a lifestyle change?
Lifestyle change. I think diets, that word's doesn't have a good connotation to it, really.
And the word diet has been around forever, and
Yeah,
it's
and
like
it says die in the
die.
beginning.
You know what? The things I didn't even think of that until you just said that, and that's
it has
exactly it.
that.
So
Like,
die.
as soon as you say diet, it's like die.
Oh,
And people are already like, walls are coming up, don't want to do it. But if we adjust your nutrition based around what you're doing and just make some better choices, then, that is easily to adhere to over a longer period of time.
yeah. Why die?
And why die trying to do it?
Diet. That's actually brilliant when you think. Now, on the nutrition level, when you're getting into 50 or older, and then people are getting into it, and they're not dieting. Okay, they're dieting, eating proper, healthy, and stuff.
Yeah.
That life hack to actually keep them on track. Is there a motivate? Like, yes, they have to be motivated. They need their
Yeah.
why. What do you push even more when you're getting older for these to keep them on track? To forget.
Yeah, so I push protein, and I really push, like, how many meals can they realistically get in? Because we come from like a bodybuilding background, so we're eating all the time, pretty much every 3 hours or so. So sometimes you're having 6 meals a day. That's not sustainable and real for the average person. So I will aim for 3 meals and 1 or 2 snacks. And in the beginning, if they're under eating, so I will always take I call it their food diary. You bite it, you write it. So anything that goes in, you write it down for me and give me the timing. And I base it around what they're currently doing and just try and put more food in. So they're eating 2 meals a day, then I will make one of them like a shake and say you've got to have 2 chew meals in the day. And then hopefully with the training and all that starts to kick in, then the hunger cues are going to increase and they'll say, hey, I'm getting hungry, I need some more food. So then we pop a snack in there and just make the gradual change. Because if you go from 0 to hero, it doesn't always work well and it's not sustainable for people. So sustainability is really where it's at, and balance.
So these people that are getting into want to start working out right away. First thing is your diet,
Yeah.
your diet, and nutrition. Because we find a lot of people are actually, they buck that system. Is all of a sudden, I'd love to have my glass of wine. Is that a
Yeah.
problem?
It's not a problem.
And I'd love to have my beer. Is that a problem?
It's not a problem.
So
As long as you're not doing it every day.
every day, and then
Yeah.
being consistent with how to work out it, because it becomes that proverbial. We want to be in shape. We want to get into shape, but you don't know you're in shape until you don't know you're in shape until you're out of shape. And when you're eating, you think, well, I'm eating right, I look good, I feel that, but you're actually not eating correctly, or you're not working out. So it's kind of being self-taught, self-aware of where you're truly at that particular moment in your food. But people have a tendency not to know where they're at.
No, because they don't know what it's like to feel good. And I didn't know until I started this journey. I never knew what it was like to feel good, to bounce out of bed in the morning, because I always hungover. Or I was getting home at 6 in the morning from being out all night and then sleeping all day and then feeling horrible when I finally got up in the afternoon. But I remember saying to a friend of mine throughout my prep, even though it was so challenging and so hard, because it tests your internal fortitude, I always bounced out of bed and it felt good to feel good. But you don't know that unless you know that.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those, the saying that goes, you don't know you're in jail until you break out.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that how do you, at that moment, is find that, oh my gosh, that lean in moment, that aha moment is, I just ate for a week, really healthy. And then all of a sudden that aha moment goes, oh, I feel really good.
Yeah.
I don't feel any pain. I don't feel any stress.
My sleep's better. All of a sudden, my skin's looking and feeling better. My clothing's getting loose that was snug around my waist or, wherever it is. The sleep thing's massive. That's actually one of the first things I look for. Within the first couple of weeks of when I start with somebody, I'm like, how's your sleep? I'm like, hey, I'm sleeping through now, or I feel rested when I get up in the morning. Like, it's key. And it's those little, subtle changes, and I call them the non-scale victories. So it's a non-scale victories, celebrate those victories, and then that keeps you motivated to move on to the next thing.
So let's go back into the sleep part of it.
Yeah.
What is the ideal sleep? And I'm going to talk, yes, everybody's different, but let's get into the 50. When you're in your 50s, 45, 50, and let's go that one. What's a great sleep pattern?
Everyone's going to be different with that. However, getting to bed before 10 o'clock at night and trying to have lights out by 10, because 10 and 2 is when you're going to get the most rested sleep. So I'm always trying to be in bed. Some days it's not going to happen because your kids hijack you. We've got work or commitments and all that kind of stuff. I always go for that 7 or 8 hours personally. I've read some studies of recent that the longer that we can sleep during this time, the easier our latter years are when it comes to things like dementia and Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff. And that to me is one of the main reasons why I do what I do, because I want to be able to age with vitality and do what I want to do as I get older and not have any health implications that stop me from doing, what I want when I want. So if I want to go and do a big hike, I want to be able to do that. Or if I want to go swim or want to travel when I'm 90, I want to be able to do that. And how do I do it? I maintain this lifestyle now and do the work now so I can enjoy it down the track.
And it's interesting because you mentioned about people, we sometimes forget where we are today is where we're going tomorrow and say, well, I'll look at it tomorrow. We're always talking about the future. Oh, I'll get there. I'll get there. And I've had a few people ask me the question about, I'm going to use obviously fitness side is that I say to them, I said, wouldn't you rather spend 1 hour a day sucking the suck, which is fitness, meaning doing that workout, doing this, than having to go every single day for chemo?
Yeah.
And knowing that you have to go versus that now you've selected to go and to feel that good, because every day, and I'm not saying that fitness will stop cancer, and I'm not saying that that at all, but what I'm saying is all of a sudden you're putting yourself into a situation that, I'm going to spend 1 hour a day just looking after my health and fitness over 50, knowing that I need movement to be able to pick up my grandchildren, to be able to do this, exactly what you said, versus spending it every day at the hospital, getting medication, this medication, then all of a sudden here I am spending an hour a day doing that. And how important that is when you just mentioned about being the 90, being able to do that hike.
Yeah. And then reducing those disease and risk factors as you get older. It's so important, and it's something that's really become prevalent in my life in the last couple of years. I've had some family members that are, haven't done so well, and dementia and, a few things like that, and cancer scares and stuff. And it's a light bulb moment. Is this what I want moving forward? My dad said to me a few years ago, he said, Nadine, what you do now will be your life in 10 to 20 years. And at that point, I knew everything, so I didn't believe him. But he is exactly right. So what I do now at 50 is going to take me into my 70s. So if I hold it together, be healthy, go to the gym, do what I need to do, then at 70, I should be pretty good and still running around doing what I need to do. But if I am at 50 drinking, relying on medication, leading a lifestyle that's not healthy, then you don't know where you're going into your 70s. It's probably not going to be good from what I've seen anyway.
No, and that totally makes sense. So somebody getting in there and they want to get into shape and they want to get into the diet. How do we start?
You find somebody that you resonate with that can help you.
So how do they start with you? Let's just use you as an example, because being in the 50s, being coming up to your birthday. I love saying this because it's your birthday. I don't get to say this very often. So how old are you really? Well, actually, I'm turning 50 right away.
Yeah.
So it's wonderful. Oh, I don't have to worry about
exciting.
age, and I don't have to worry about the woke crowd. This is
Yeah.
she's there. It's all perfect. Not that I know it any better or any worse, but anyway, that's good. So you're 50. How are we how does people contact and get started into that? Like there's people that don't work out at all and they get started. Like here you are. How do they start?
So they contact me through Facebook or Instagram or give me a call, my website, and then I set up a consult with them. So we have a chat about their goals, where they want to go, what they want to do, and then we sit down and we brainstorm a plan that's going to work for them, that's going to give them balance, and something that's, again, sustainable that they can adhere to. And that could be 3 days a week in the gym. It could be 2 days a week in the gym. It could be 5 days a week in the gym, because everybody's different with what they want to do. And we do a food diary for 3 or 4 days. I will normally scan them with my bioscan machine. So that just gives me an indication of what's going on with their body composition on a cellular level, so I can see things like hormonal changes, or imbalances. I can see muscular imbalances. I can see visceral fat levels, which is huge when it comes to cortisol and stress, which is massive out there, especially in our age demographic. Like the cortisol's crazy what it does. And that'll give me your total energy expenditure, your basal metabolic rate, and then I can really dial that in and give you a fully customized program.
So you had just mentioned right there, and I'm just going to go into it more, is that you just started talking about hormones. Mm-hmm. So women that are getting in this and not understanding is work. Okay, my hormones are going crazy, and is workout good or is workout bad? Like,
depend on the workout.
So
depends where they're at.
And I'm asking the question because the things I know that I don't know, and I know people that are getting in and their bodies are changing, as women and females changing. When do you recognize, or what's a good time to say, hey, this will do this for you?
So the perimenopause starts as early as 30 for some women. So it's hard to put like a timeline on that. So I recommend both women and men go get blood work done every 6 months or at least every 12 months. Then you have a baseline of what's going on, and you need your hormone markers done, full blood count done, cholesterol done, and you can see what's going on. I'll always request that from my clients, in particular when we're first starting, and then as we progress through the program, so I can see what's happening internally. But hormonally, those changes can start super, super early. So the best thing that you can do, and the number one thing, is food, nutrition. Make sure that your cholesterol is within healthy ranges with that, because cholesterol has a massive impact on your hormonal profile for both men and women. And also cortisol and stress and that visceral fat. Because if that visceral fat's high, that's going to be overloading your liver. It is going to be causing estrogen to rise. Cortisol rises. It thrives in that environment. So if you're going into those late 30s, 40s and 50s, into all those hormonal changes, if your hormones are already all messed up, then it's not going to be fun, and it's not an easy road to come back from.
So visceral fat, can you explain a little bit more about that?
So the visceral fat's the fat that sits in and around the organs. It's an essential fat that we do need. It's actually a living organism. So when it gets to certain levels, it throws toxins into the system. So excessive amounts of visceral fat will cause things like inflammation in the body, heart disease, sleep apnea, and type 2 diabetes.
Where does it come from?
Basically stress.
Stress?
In all honesty, yeah. They call it stress fat.
So when I'm stressed...
in layman's terms, yeah.
So take this as an example, and I'm just going to dive in it. So, and I'm going to use bodybuilding just because, and then I'm just saying this, is that all of a sudden you get down to and I'm just using this as a 6% body fat.
Yeah.
Would you have visceral fat there?
You'd have a low amount of visceral fat.
You'd have a lot?
A low
Visceral fat. Can you have a high visceral fat because under stress, but still be a bodybuilder, like be at 6%?
I don't know whether you would be
Not
at 6%,
but
you
12?
could, you
Well,
could
for sure.
subcutaneous wise, you could totally be that. So subcutaneous is under the skin. So aesthetically, you might have a high visceral fat level, but look great because it's sitting in and around the organs, not under the skin. Because when you're on stage, you're getting rid of the subcutaneous fat under the skin. So it's totally possible. I have had athletes like triathletes that have had significant amounts of visceral fat that to look at, you would not think they had those amounts. And they're the ones that are having heart attacks. It's crazy.
So if they're having the heart attacks, do you recommend them wearing an Apple Watch?
Well, they should be, yeah. And
to
like
actually-
looking at, because if you look at a sport like a triathlon
Right.
or marathon runners, they can't eat during that time. Their training is crazy. They're doing a lot of their stuff fasted. And that's a lot of stress on the body. So the visceral fat increases, even though they look super lean. It's
Interesting.
nuts.
So they're actually in worse shape, or sorry, not they. A person could be in worse
Totally.
shape, but being. So you wouldn't say that they'd be healthy then.
No.
Interesting, because
But they
I
look
would,
it.
They look it.
And you would think that they are, but the statistics, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but there's like this generation of men between like 52 and 60 odd that are just having these heart attacks out of nowhere.
And that's interesting because we talk about, so here's 50. And now are those the guys that at 50 that are actually just starting? When's the midlife crisis for men?
I don't know. You
42?
tell me.
I don't know. I'm thinking, did I get my Porsche win here? When did I get? Yeah, exactly. Go back in the day. Well, if a big change would have happened at 50, so is that midlife? So I'll say midlife crisis is
Yeah.
at 50.
Okay.
So if you're having that midlife crisis, all right, I'm gonna get in huge shape, and then all of a sudden you start your first workout, then all of a sudden, bang, you have a heart attack. What's the first thing to watch for then?
In having a heart attack?
Meaning going slow, not having a heart attack, but that starting of your workout where people have that visceral fat we just talked about, and then going in there and say, start it slow
Yeah. Yeah.
and get all your blood work tested.
Yes, and get a scan done. And yeah, the blood work is key. And if you're not measuring, you're guessing with all this stuff. So that's the benefit of having the bioscan. We can see that first up, see what's going on. We can address that with some supplementation and obviously nutrition. And then the workouts, yeah, just take it easy, ease into it. Like you don't go from zero to hero. A couple of days a week to start. I always start my clients if they've not really done anything for a while or never worked out. It's like 3 days a week, upper, lower, then a full body, and they're taking their rest days. And then normally after that first month, they're like, hey, I want more. Can I have 4 days? Yay, you sure can.
So how many customers or clients actually start from, and I'm not going zero to hero, but all of a sudden haven't worked out their whole lives. They're 40, they're older, and then say, you know what, I partied my whole life. I'm time to come in.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yeah.
How many of those guys there has to be lots out there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, there's plenty.
And because that's that market right now, when we look at our baby boomers, where they're at, and the demographics of society, housing, where this is at, this is a generation that it seems it's not a lost generation. I'm just talking about the males and females over 50 that are not in shape.
There's a lot out there.
There is a lot out there, and not knowing.
Yeah.
I have to tell a little story
Okay.
about something, and tell me how true this is or not. Apple Watches in the fitness industry. What do you think of them?
I think they're a good tool. They do keep people motivated. Some people like to have those the circles.
Yes.
And that keeps people moving, and that's great. And I think they definitely do have a place. As far as accuracy, it's a guideline. I've had clients and they can sync their Apple Watches up to my app and all that kind of stuff. But it is just a general guide. It's not gospel with that.
Yeah.
So it is an algorithm that they run. So they're okay, and they serve the purpose for sure.
And the reason why I was getting to that and to dive a little deeper into that question is that I ran into a couple people that actually had a heart palpitation or a defib or whatever we're going to call it. It's not a heart attack, it's this. But all of a sudden it just says, oh, you have a warning. And it became that they had the warning for the first time, and then they went to the doctor and they said, oh, yeah, you actually had that algorithm happen to you.
Yeah.
And it became a shocker that it was like in their face immediately that, wait a second, if I didn't check this now, and this was the Apple Watch, and then guess what I did? I purchased the Apple Watch.
Oh, did you?
Because over 50, you're thinking, because the
Yeah.
first thing is anxiety. Like as you're getting older, you think of anxiety because now you're thinking about, I should have, could have, would have, am I in shape and doing this? And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden what was it? I'm not gonna die of not in shape.
Yeah.
I'm just, maybe it's anxiety.
It's going to be one of those things.
It's going to
that
be one of
just,
those things.
Boom. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
watching that in the fitness side of it, it actually relieved a lot of stress and pressure going, oh, no, it's not having a heart attack. Oh,
Yeah.
it's okay. My heart
I'm
rate's
good.
this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I was curious about with clients and stuff like that. Do they ever talk to you about my heart rates and blood pressure and stuff like that?
A little bit about the heart rates for sure, because it is important in certain areas of your working out. But yeah, I've had one girl that I know that's had an experience with the Apple Watch like that, and she, her heart was not playing very nice, and it did. She went to hospital, and so it did. It essentially saved her life. So they are definitely good for that.
Yeah, the things you know that you don't know. And that's why creating curiosity, and I'd ask myself, like when I went through that whole thing, was to say, interesting.
Yeah.
Boy, it just relieves a lot. That aha moment, that stress.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything that you are curious about in your curiosity at your
my
age,
curiosity.
your birthday, where you're at in life?
I'm always curious. I'm always curious about new things and what's going on. I'm excited for the future, with fitness, and because it's so, I think, with social media, like what we were talking about before, it's really opened up everything, so we can see more and see what's going on. And I love finding new people to follow, and just see what they do and all that kind of stuff. But I'm just curious about where I'm going to be. I've got my goals, and everything's going really, really well. And one of my big all-time goals is to be, 50 and fit and healthy and be an inspiration for women out there. If I can do it coming from 220 pounds, like anybody else can do it. And I'm curious to see where this is all going to go, because it's pretty exciting.
That is awesome. And I'm looking forward. And thank you very much for being on Shed Talk with Kevin Halliday. And it was wonderful having you here.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now you know. Shed Talk.